Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the latest edition of the Burgundy Brigade podcast. I am your host, Kevin Goff, at BRG Brigade Kevin on the Twitter, joined as usual by my good friend and co-host, Aaron Music at Avalangelist on the Twitter. Aaron, man, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. How about you?
Recovering, but well. We won't go into it. Yeah. It's we are coming to you just moments after the 2018 NHL entry draft has come to a close, and the Avalanche certainly left us with a lot of things to talk about. So, I guess we're just gonna kind of dive right into it and start going from there. I know there's at least one voicemail that we've gotten that that is more tied to future uses of the draft lottery, and I'm looking forward to getting to that. So we'll dive into that later in the show. But let's just go right in here. Before the draft even started, the Avalanche got things off to a very big booming beginning as they acquire goaltender Philipp Grubauer and defenseman Brooks Orpik from the Washington Capitals in exchange for a second-round draft pick, the Avs' second-round draft pick in this draft. Now, since that has happened, we've already seen some movement on a few things. The discussion around Orpik was they were going to try to flip him, or if they couldn't find a dance partner in that sense, they would then just buy him out. He has already been placed on unconditional waivers to be bought out, and Grubauer has already signed his extension with the Avalanche. It was a 3-year extension. This is from Renaud Lavoie. 3-year extension that should be in the ballpark of $10 million overall. All for a second-round draft pick. So, I mean, what are your initial thoughts on that?
It's all about. Well, we talked about how they needed to get more goaltending depth, and that was an issue that needed to address. And he was the best guy available out there on the market. He was a restricted free agent, so you'd have to put up a qualifying offer.
Right.
And so the Avs just stepped around it. Same way they did with Varlamov, except instead of trading a first and a second for him, they just traded a second and took on a bad contract, which they then got rid of.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is basically the way that general managers deal with signing restricted free agents. No one really does the offer sheet. You get once out in a blue moon, and then you hear everybody involved with it get all cranky about it because GMs kind of have that. It's sort of that unwritten rule that you just don't offer sheet guys. So rather than offer sheeting for Grubauer, and they just go ahead and call him up and say, hey, we'd like to get this guy. And I mean, talk about a great way to do this. They just as you said, they took on a contract that Washington wanted to get rid of as an incentive to not have to add as much on their end. So they were able to get rid of one of their.
They needed one pick to make that happen, which is a win.
Yeah, big win. So Orpik's already on his way out. That was an expectation, and Grubauer's already signed. So I mean, I personally wasn't hugely high on the idea of Grubauer. I never hated it, but Grubauer's 26, so he's not considerably younger than Varlamov. He is obviously younger than Varlamov. Hasn't really had hasn't really held the starting net for a while. I had an opportunity to do it with Washington this year and lost that job after 2 games in the first round.
Well, they went back. Holtby is their starter anyway. I don't know why they started him in the playoffs. That was weird.
I had no idea why they did that.
In any case, in his NHL career, he started 101 games. He's played in 101. He started 79, 43 wins, 31 losses, no ties, oddly enough. 11 overtime losses. He's got a 923 save percentage and a goals against average of 929. Sorry.
Save percentage.
His goals against average is 229, and I'm dyslexic, and I apologize.
You're gonna say that would not be a great goals against average right there.
No, That's an ERA for a pitcher,
right?
You know?
Also, not a very good one. Yeah. So I mean, all in all, though, it certainly addresses the need. Addresses their immediate need. Now they have 2 goaltenders in their system. You have to also kind of imagine that this sort of puts the writing on the wall for Varlamov.
Or at least he's got to have a healthy year.
Yeah, he's absolutely.
We've seen Varlamov be a legitimate ace starter when he's healthy. It's just the problem is with him, his lower body he's had trouble with.
Yeah. Varley has a couple ways that he can react to this. I mean, there is a certain, Grubauer is not sticking around here in order to be a career backup. I think that's clear. Grubauer has kind of been that guy that everyone around the league has tapped as the next current backup who is due to get a starting job pretty quick here. So,
yep. And Sakic had talked about they're both going to split starts. I would expect about 40 starts between the 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then you need that guy that Bernier was fine this year, except he also had some injury issues. He had the weird cut on his hand. He had 2 issues with concussions. And especially when it comes to goaltenders, if they're starting to deal with concussions, I don't know that you want that as your backup plan to a starter who can go down at any point.
Right. Bernier's groin also got messed up in the playoffs. It was just, it's certainly, so, I mean, again, so coming back to Varley with this, Varley's used to being, even when he's with his injured years, he still gets 55 starts a season. And when he's healthy, the 1 year he was healthy, he played all the time. Was up in the 60s. So this is going to be a noticeable.
Played like 84 of the Avs 82 games.
Mm-hmm. This is going to be very true. This is going to be a big adjustment for him. He's no longer clearly set as the guy. So that's going to have to. I mean, a lot is going to show up for his attitude with this. Varley could have you look at ways that you could do this. You can look at it as a challenge and say, all right, I'm going to have to just bust my hump and stay healthy and just outplay this guy. And if he does that, then great for the Avalanche. Then you got Super Varley back. And the other option is he can maybe take this as a bit of an insult and maybe be a little sulky about it, in which case Grubauer is going to outplay him and Grubauer is going to end up with the net.
And the idea here and this is totally a Bednar thing, is competition.
Mm-hmm.
Competition. He wants competition throughout his roster so that no one gets complacent. I was going to say comfortable, but complacent is a better term.
Right. So, I mean, it's good. So 3 more years for Grubauer, which will make him 29 by the time he's done there. And then, hey, we get to do this whole song and dance again, right? Except for hopefully maybe by then the Avalanche will have a few more prospects underneath ready to be in and available. And maybe Grubauer is clearly a guy that can stick around until he's 35. That'd be awesome, too.
Yeah, I mean, they also don't forget about Pavel Francouz.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I think this makes it pretty clear where Francouz is going to start the year. He'll be down in Loveland, pushing Spencer Martin. I mean, Spencer Martin did not have a good season this past season, and lost his net in San Antonio to the Blues prospect.
Well, Ville Husso is a legitimate goaltender prospect.
For sure. But he started the season with the net and did not keep it. So it's going to be a competition now between him and Francouz down in Loveland to see who starts with that. So all in all, I love this trade. I mean, they gave up was minimal. Yes, they took on a contract that they're now buying out, but I mean what that is called is that's creative use of your cap space in order to facilitate a deal.
Mm-hmm. Essentially, they have so much cap space they can take on a bad contract to get a
absolutely.
player.
I mean, Orpik's contract has just this last year left in it. So the buyout rules is it's 2/3 of the remaining money due spread out over twice the remaining years of the contract. So the cap hit is going to be, and the Avs already have like $23 million in cap space, and I think that's before the expected $5 million bump that's going to be coming in the cap this offseason. So this is going to be a couple $1 million over this season and next season to make sure that you could get Philipp Grubauer at a minimal price. That's just savvy general management right there. Is what that is.
And you solidify your goaltending overall, and that's perfectly in line with what they said they wanted to do.
Yep.
And what we said we'd like them to do.
Absolutely. So then we get into the draft. We start moving through the draft. We thought there was a lot made that it seemed like the Avalanche might end up with Ottawa's first pick in the draft this year. Ottawa used their draft pick on Brady Tkachuk, who will, I would imagine, more than likely not play in Ottawa this coming season. So the Avalanche now will have, no matter what, unless they choose to get rid of it, which it's going to have to be a damn good deal in order to make them want to get rid of it. The Avalanche will absolutely now have Ottawa's first pick in the 2019 draft. So we'll be watching Ottawa closely.
Well, and on that, I actually I looked at the Ottawa roster as it is right now. I'm not including Brady Tkachuk just because I really don't think he's going to be better served to be on a team with, ironically, Bowers and go fight for that national championship.
Yeah.
That BU team is going to be really good.
Yes, it is.
And I just don't think he's ready for the NHL game. And I feel like if you're going to push him into the NHL, you're almost doing it a disservice.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely on that.
Yep.
Cool.
So I just don't think that happens. So you have Bobby Ryan, who's got an awful contract, playing with Duchesne, and I'm assuming they're going to sign him Stone.
Yep.
Their newly acquired Mikhail Bodker with he shouldn't be a second-line center, but he's going to be. Pageau and Burroughs. That's an awful line. Pye-Arvey, Smith, Zingle, and McCormick. And they have two prospects in Colin White and Logan Brown that could make it come up. This is before they even move Carlson, which they're going to have to because he's requested a trade.
Yeah.
He's not going to sign with Ottawa. You pretty much guaranteed that. So Carlson, Clayson, Wooleen, Chabot. Is that? How do you pronounce that name? Shabbat?
I think it's Shabbat.
Shabbat. Thank you.
I've heard Shabbat.
England. That's a very inexperienced young defense, and young defenses. They have Craig Anderson, who's also requested a trade, and Mike Condon for your goaltenders. That does not look like a playoff team anywhere near close to it.
No. That certainly looks like a team that you would expect to start offloading the few pieces that it does have in order to stockpile draft picks.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to probably sign Stone to a longer deal, but Duchesne's ending his deal this year. Mm-hmm. Carlson's deal is done this year. Anderson is 35. Their pipeline is not very good. It's not very well developed. And so the Avs are looking at, I think they're looking square in the face at the top 5 draft picks.
I think, yeah. I would, I'm kind of to the point where I'm almost expecting that the worst case scenario for the Avs will be 4th overall. Again, where Ottawa will have the worst record in the league and then potentially lose out in the draft lottery. That I kind of feel like that's may end up being the worst case scenario for the Avalanche, which would be pretty amazing. And then obviously best case being that they have this lottery draft pick with the best odds of selecting of winning it. I mean,
just roster-wise, I just don't see Ottawa challenging for anything.
Same.
I can see I could see Craig Anderson having a big year, or Duchesne going absolutely bonkers and keeping them relevant. But at the same point, if he's not going to resign, what are you going to do with that? I mean, are you going to keep Matt Duchesne around?
Well, they're not going to have too much of a choice in that, considering Duchesne becomes unrestricted after next year.
Right. Are you going to try and keep him around and hope you can sign him?
Or trade him when he's still worth.
Or are you going to move him at the deadline, try to pick up a first-round draft pick? I think you're going to see Ottawa pick up as many first-round draft picks next year as you can to try and offset the loss of theirs.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's just kind of what you think they got to do.
Yep. Careful. It's going to be real interesting here because I feel like Ottawa players tuned out their coach, and he's coming back. Mm-hmm. And the coach will specifically want everyone to play a 200-foot game, and their top center does not do that. That's going to be rough.
Yeah. It's certainly going to be the team in the East that all Avalanche fans are going to be watching next year is going to be Ottawa, because we are going to want them to just be terrible next year. So nothing personal, Ottawa, but the worse you are, the better it is for the Avalanche. So nothing personal.
And I just that organization seems like it had a toxic environment. We know a little bit of why, but I don't think we've heard the whole story.
I don't think so either. Yeah, that just seems
their owner has not done very well for himself to making themselves look well.
I mean, you know you're in a bad situation where, I mean, absolutely everybody is just piling it on, and mm-hmm. that used to be the Avalanche. Where every single extra national writer would throw in a little shot here and there at the Avalanche, and it would happen all the time. And now it's Ottawa.
Well, and the Avs took that in stride and said, what do we need to change?
Yep.
And they basically changed their entire core philosophy around a single idea of playing fast.
Yep. Indeed.
And I'm not sure I've seen a change in the core philosophy of Ottawa.
Well, I mean, especially considering they're keeping their coach around, it's not gonna that's one of the first things you need to do in order to start changing a philosophy and changing a culture. And if you're going to be keeping that, I mean, I can't necessarily say that you can blame the entire the whole situation between Hoffman and Carlson on the coach. That I don't think that's fair. But when you start getting into a situation where your system is just not being played by the team, you got to look at the coach and just say, okay, well, maybe if the team's not going to buy into it, it doesn't matter how well it might have worked the 1 year where they were ever so close to getting to the Stanley Cup Finals, but because it's not happening anymore. So you got to look at moving on. So I would pretty much expect that Ottawa might be a team that moves on from coach mid-season next year.
And, I mean, the other teams that were near the bottom, Buffalo got a good defenseman. I still can't put any faith in Buffalo. They're, at least for right now. But I love Arizona for next year. Vancouver might be down with them. Chicago is going to rebound. We all know that. Edmonton still has McDavid. They'll be above Ottawa. Calgary has probably one of my favorite top fours in all of hockey for defensemen.
They just made a fantastic trade with Carolina and acquired Noah Hannafin.
Yep, and Elias Lindholm.
Yeah.
I don't see a whole lot of teams. Maybe Anaheim. I could see Anaheim start to crumble a little bit. Maybe the Rangers. Those are the only teams I can see playing around with at least quality of roster.
Yeah. Yep. We've gotten a bit off track, but that's okay. Coming back in. So now we're still coming in through the first round. Crazy first round. Holy cow, what a crazy first round. Just all kinds of names going left, right. So these guys that you sit there and go, how do you let this guy pass, are falling. Detroit gets Philip Zadina dropped into their laps.
Right, I mean, kidding.
Holy cow.
That's the best falling of a player into a team's lap since Bradley Chubb fell to the Broncos at 5.
Seriously. Edmonton had some excellent choices at defense. I mean, that whole string of players between like 7 and 15, you were sitting there going, how are these guys here? And then it comes to the Avalanche. Still a lot of interesting players available. And the Avalanche selected Martin Kaut out of the Czech Republic. Was kind of a surprise pick. I don't think a lot of all the people that were expected around that time. We saw guys like Joe Veleno was still there. Rasmus Kupari was still there. A bunch of names where you sit there and go, "Hey, Avalanche, you can jump on that."
At the same point that of all the wingers that were sitting there, he was the best of them.
Sure, I absolutely agree.
Two-way winger models this game after Patrice Bergeron, which is no small thing.
This is a good model, yeah.
He's probably not going to have the highest upside,
right?
But he's going to definitely. He looks to be a consistent second line scoring.
Absolutely.
Force.
I mean that what the general consensus seemed of all the talking heads was that he's not going to give you the high end scoring skill, but you know what? The Avalanche kind of have that sort of taken care of. They've got a couple guys that are going to go ahead and take care of that for you, but he can still score. He can still contribute. He plays a very strong two-way game. And he can play, even though he's not necessarily going to be the highlight reel score from anywhere type of guy. He has the ability to play with those types of guys and play well and facilitate. He shoots well. He passes well. He plays defense well. He's got pretty decent size on all of it. He's 6'1" right now. I forget what his weight was, but it wasn't little. It was like 180 something, I want to say. So he's still got a frame that he can add some muscle onto. That's a good body for a winger to have. He's going to be along the boards. He's going to be down low, fighting those battles where you need to have the strength and the body frame to last. And he's got that. I think you basically describe him as a safe pick, right? Yeah,
and he's one with limited upside, but he's also got a very stable floor. Assuming that he got bumped down a little bit for registering a heart defect, which they apparently underwent a procedure to fix it.
Yep.
Especially playing at altitude, that's something that's a little bit concerning. Mm-hmm. But if it's something that sounds like it was no big deal to fix, then I'm okay with it.
Yeah, listening to the broadcast last night, they talked about how he went and had the surgery to get it fixed, and then the surgeons that performed the operation came out after the fact and said, we're not sure he actually had it in the first place, but if he did, it's fixed now, so we're good. So, but yes, I definitely hear you. The altitude can, as people have seen. If they've been watching when the Steelers came to Denver a few years ago, one of their players couldn't play because he had a heart defect.
Right.
And that was hurt by the altitude. So again, all in all, I think the overall feel for Kaut is, well, that wasn't who I was expecting, but it seems like it's going to be a pretty decent pick.
And they have enough. The Avalanche scouting staff has enough goodwill built up with me that I can trust them.
Absolutely, I agree. I think a lot of people put that out even before the pick last night, which was funny because of some of the predictable reactions that come after that. So there are a lot of people that said just that. It's really nice to be in a spot where you can look at your scouting staff and be like, you know what, I trust you. And then they come out with this kind of a pick where people were just not expecting the name. And you know how Twitter usually reacts to that. But I think, by and large, most people are still sitting in that camp of going, you know what, the scouting staff has built up a lot of real positive positive goodwill. We're going to go ahead and trust it, and we're just going to trust the pick.
Well, that's what they're paid to do.
And it's not like they're just. We'll get into this a little bit later, but my favorite thing about this new scouting staff is they're not stapled to North America. They're actually finding players worldwide.
Yeah. There's no one saying, there's no rule that says the best players exist solely in North America.
Yeah, I mean, Alexei Gusarov is doing scouting for the Avs in Russia, and
The Avs are building quite a little Russian pipeline.
right.
I mean,
It's a Russian pipeline that Putin has nothing involved. So I'm okay with that.
well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. So all in all, we'll kind of wait and see on Kaut. The other thing about Kaut, he played very well at the World Juniors. He played on a line with Zadina. He was a point per game player at the World Junior Championships. Played there, and everywhere I was reading with that, they all used the same phrase and did not look out of place at all. So that kind of leads into that whole he can play with those high end guys and fit in. You just knows sometimes you just know how to work with those kinds of guys, and that's not a bad thing. So there's that going for him. The other thing he has going for him is when the Czech Republic made their World Championship team, Kaut was on it, Zadina was not.
And
so read into that whatever you will, but
I love the pick. I was a little bit taken aback initially, but I like it. They didn't reach for it. They didn't reach like I thought. The New York Rangers, I felt, did a reach getting Kavacha at the 9. I felt like that was a bit of a reach.
Yeah.
The Minnesota Wild, I felt like they reached significantly in the first round.
Yeah, I agree.
To the point where, when they select a guy and the people on the TV start shuffling their notes or go,
yep. They were the first one that I think they legitimately said, well, that's definitely off the board.
Yep. And them saying, oh, yeah, it was basically Ryan Suter. Well, I hope so. Otherwise, you're screwed.
Yeah, I know that. That was a little. That was an interesting comment. Well, I drafted some guy a little while ago called Ryan Suter, and like, okay, you better hope that's who he is then.
A second round pick, though. He was drafted in the first round. If you had said Shea Weber, I would have been more inclined because Shea Weber was the second round pick.
Yep.
Anyways, but I felt like as I got to know the guy and see him interviewed, he's got a really nice personality. I feel like he's going to fit really well with their with the identity of the locker room.
Yeah, I agree. I think I saw something that said that Kaut didn't leave until he managed to go say congratulations to all the first round draft picks. Which, I mean, come on, that's a cool thing to do.
Yeah.
We know that the Avs are certainly big on character right now too. So
yeah,
and that's not a bad thing to be high on.
Hey, character guys with a good work ethic, they'll turn out to be pros for you.
That's right. So then we came into the second round. The Avalanche still had the draft pick that was acquired from Nashville, which they then traded. They traded to Pittsburgh. Is that right?
They traded it to Pittsburgh. Yes, indeed.
Pittsburgh ended up with the second round draft pick the Avs had. So the Avs ended up with no second round draft picks this time around. But they did acquire they acquired a third round pick from Pittsburgh and then an additional one. Let me pull it up. Then they also got a fifth round pick from Pittsburgh in this one. So
and you know what's kind of funny about the third round pick the Avs got? In initially the team that initially had it was Ottawa.
Yes, you are correct. Yes, you are correct. That's amazing.
That's just digging the knife in.
Yeah. Joe Sack is just like, I have a good feeling about this one. It came from Ottawa.
Not only did you take your first next year, your third next year, we're taking your third this year. And you can.
Oh, it's just good stuff. So the Avalanche, with that third-round pick, which was the second pick in the third round, early pick, select goaltender Eustace Annunen. Is that about right? Annunen? I don't know.
I would say a Noonan.
Annunen. Yeah, there it is. From Finland, big goalie, 6'4", 207 pounds. He was last podcast we were talking about taking goalies, and I mentioned the Giants in the Crease goalie guide who said he would be happy with any of his first four. Annunen is in his first four. So yay for that.
At least I'm looking through here. I don't know who the first goaltender was, but he's one of the first. Yeah, didn't wait for the goaltenders to come through.
Yeah, he might have been the first. I don't. Of course,
he's the third.
Was he the third? I woke up when they were in the fourth round. I was on a little bit of medication last night and slept pretty hefty. So, yeah.
Olaf Lundbaum went to the Rangers, and Olivier Rodriguez. What's about I can't figure where that name's from. Went to Edmonton at the end of the second round.
Okay. Well, there we go. So yeah, there we go. So Annunen, big frame, so he's got that going for sure. There's a lot that he.
Nice.
What's that?
He's got that going for him, which is nice.
Which is nice, yeah. God. And knows how to use the big frame. Is kind of what I get from the scouting report. It says there's an obvious technical slant to Annunen's play style because it's the best for how it fits his strengths and weaknesses. Uses a taller stance with his hands out in an active position. This type of stance he knows he doesn't and shouldn't need to be aggressive often because he's already taking up a large portion of the net. What I like most about his crease depth is how he picks his spots when to be aggressive, when to be further back. Is this a type of recognition that fits into Annunen's mindset, which is to play within his limits? So, yeah.
And they interviewed him and said, so you kind of seem like a Pekka Rinne. And he said, not really. Rinne's more aggressive than I am. I prefer to be a little more calm in the net. So that says something to me about he knows who he is.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, yeah, Rinne's very aggressive and can be very floppy a lot. And you know what? It works for him. And that's definitely after reading this is definitely not the feel that I get. They want to say he's Rinne-ish because he's big and he's Finnish. So that's kind of lazy analysis if you look at it that way. But Annunen's basically we talked about he's much more stable. Annunen's biggest weakness, he says in the scouting report I'm reading, is his physical skill set, in particular his quickness. He does have a solid base of footwork and edge work at a high level enough to get him around the net efficiently, although right now, as long as he moves within his box of control, that's kind of how I read that. Funny to read that. His box of control, though, isn't very big, which is why he needs to be as good as he is at controlling his crease depth out there. But there's always parts of the game where he needs to go outside of that box, and that's where he runs into trouble.
And this is the highest the Avs have taken a goaltender since Spencer Martin at the 63rd overall pick in 2013. I'm all for taking that. If you can develop that, especially if you can develop a Finnish goaltender, you really own it.
Absolutely.
Finland turns out a lot of really good goaltenders ever since Mika Kiprusoff.
Absolutely. And now, of course, Jussi Parkala is a Finnish goaltender coach, so you certainly have that. They're going to be able to work together pretty well. I would expect. So the Avalanche with a good, I feel like that's a good goaltender selection. Still a ways away, obviously, before he's going to be able to start making some jumps over to North America, but it's a guy who has some hype behind him, who was kind of looked at as one of the more top-end picks in this draft. I've been waiting for the Avalanche to do that, to go ahead and take one of the more top-end goaltender options in the draft. So yay on that.
And maybe in 2 years you pull him over and see what he has.
Yeah. I mean, he's still obviously playing in the Finnish Junior League, so give him a little bit more time there. See if he does get a chance to jump up into the Liga and play up there, and see how he does. Moving into the third round, the Avalanche had their own third-round pick, which they used to select another Finnish player, left wing Sampo Ranta.
This might be my favorite pick.
Who played in the USHL this year, however, so he's Finnish, but he is not playing in Finland. I believe is he the one that's going to BU?
Last I saw him, Sioux City. Let me research.
He played in the USHL this season in Sioux City, but most of those USHL players also end up in college. Yes, he is. Okay, he's not going to BU. My apologies. He's going to University of Wisconsin. Yes, he's going to be at Wisconsin with legendary Avalanche coach Tony Granato.
Yay!
Ranta's a another good-sized guy. He's I see some sites that have him 6'1", some sites that have him 6'2". Elite Prospects has him 6'2". 198, so his frame is already pretty solid as far as that's concerned. A lot of offensive upside for him. That's pretty much his game. He is an offensive guy, and there's still a lot to work on in the defensive zone.
He's got a great shot. He's one of those you take a swing, and if you connect with him, it's a home run pick.
Absolutely.
Left wing 6'2". This is a guy that you put on your middle six winger, and that's going to be so good going for your franchise going forward.
Yeah. I'm looking to see one of the things that I've found for him, but he's supremely shoot first in the offensive zone. He's Nail Yakupov like in that sense, where he gets the puck and he wants to shoot it. Almost to a fault sometimes. There's another thing I read that said basically he sometimes uses too much energy because he's trying to do everything himself instead of using his teammates. So that's definitely something he's going to want to learn how to do. And he's going to have some time to do it in the college game as well. So
that's something that Tony Granato really works with really well, getting players to work as a team.
Yeah.
I think Wisconsin is great for him. That's a great program, actually.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, another real solid selection. There's obviously stuff he needs to work on. If he can put more of a 200-foot game to his ability, then you're going to have a guy that's going to have a pretty decent NHL upside. Gotta like it. So, moving forward from there, the Avalanche then moved into the fourth round, where there were no shenanigans with any draft picks, and selected Tyler Weiss out of the U.S. Development Program, who is a smaller guy, 5'10", 151.
Give him a sandwich.
Yeah, seriously. Give him a sandwich. A lot of growing for this kid to do. But, again, another high offensive upside to this particular player.
Yeah, 27 points in 50 games with the U.S. under-18. Another in the USHL, you get 11 points in 22 games.
Yep. Says some of the things I'm reading here. Long-term development, this is from draftsite.com. Long-term development center wing with a solid skill set, nice hands, very good feet, playmaking ability, and a high compete level. The issue is he needs time to get bigger, so he's certainly going to have time for that. Excuse me. Should add to his frame so he can be able to handle physicality in puck battles and battles on the wall. He is committed to Boston University.
And I'm not sure that he will play for Boston next year, just because BU has so many really good players.
Yeah.
They may defer that another year.
It's possible. Another one this one's I found from Mile High Hockey. Highly skilled player, loves to have a puck on his stick. The epitome of a boomer bust that could turn into an absolute steal at this point in the draft, overshadowed by a great U18 team this past season. He should get a chance to play big minutes.
And he's a real rags to riches story.
Wait, is he going to now? I'm seeing a different thing from him. Let me find his. He is not going to Boston, so that draft site one is wrong. Sorry, he's actually going to University of Nebraska Omaha.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember reading it on BSN.
Yeah, my bad on that. So shame on you, draft site, for giving me bad information. He'll be playing in the NCHC then with University of Nebraska Omaha.
Yeah, but he came from a family struggling with money, and he said, I had to move away when I was 14. It gives kids the hope that they can make it. Their dads, they don't need to play in the NHL. They don't need connection. My dad is beer league ref, and they know that they can make it on their own if they just work hard and don't let anyone stop them or get in the way.
Yeah.
That screams work ethic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is something that Heppel talked about looking for and diagnosing.
Brock Otten, who's an OHL scout, tweeted this, said, really loved Colorado's selection of Tyler Weiss. Loved this kid dating back to his minor midget days. Tons of skill, physically immature, but has tons of potential once he fills out. Going to be a great college player. I also read another. I was reading a piece on him. I don't remember where it was specifically from, but I loved the way the piece ended. It was talking. They were talking to his mom, who said as early back as like when he was 9-10 years old. He would say, I'm going to play in the NHL one day. When they said, well, what makes you think that you're going to be able to make it that far? He simply just said, because I believe in myself.
And hard work, core ethic, skilled player. He's small, but he'll need to grow. But
yeah. But again, it's not like small guys can't work in the NHL as long as they know how to use their skill set to make themselves fit. And
you know what I noticed? There were a lot of defensemen who were picked in the first round who were sub 6 foot.
Oh God, yeah.
And
like 160 pounds.
And it kind of made me laugh, thinking that the Avs got out ahead of the market by getting Girard and Makar all in the same year, and now every team is moving that way.
Yep.
It's like, okay, these guys know what they're doing. They know what they're diagnosing.
They certainly do. So he's another project pick, but that there's a lot of that he has a lot of those intangible things that the Avalanche certainly want in their players. They want that work ethic. They want that belief in themselves. They want to just have these guys who are just not satisfied with anything but the best they can do. So that's certainly seems like the kind of guy that they're getting in Tyler Weiss. Moving into the 5th round, so the Avs now ended up with two picks in the 5th round because of the swap of that second round draft pick with the Penguins. They got an extra 5th round pick in this one. The first 5th round pick was their own at 140th overall, where they selected overage center Brandon Sagen from the OHL, the Hamilton Bulldogs, who were a member who won the OHL, I believe, didn't they?
I believe so.
Or they were either
pay a whole lot of attention to the OHL this year.
Yeah, they were they either won the OHL or they were in the final. So I don't know. I think actually no, they beat Sault Ste. Marie. So yeah, they must have been in the Memorial Cup. So there's that. Sagen, as we said, he's an overager, so this is not his first time through the draft. Had a really solid year for Hamilton this year. Had 70 points, evenly split between goals and assists, 35 and 35. Love. Again, you have to be careful of the highlights thing that you find, because that's only little snippets of things. But I love the highlight reel that he brings out. He has a really strong shot that he can use that he uses really well from the circles, but he also is big enough and quick enough and smart enough to work immediately in front of the net. Where he can bang home rebounds, or he can make a quick move because he has really good hands to beat the goalie in front of the net as well. There's a lot of really good comments that you saw come on social media after that one. From one of them was from the either the TV or radio announcer from the Hamilton Bulldogs, who says, outstanding pick for the Avalanche, getting a class act in Brandon Sagen, great in the face-off circle, full 200-foot player, strong on the PK, brilliant sniper, especially from the top of the circle on the power play. Overall player, sounds like a hell of a pick in the 5th round.
Wow, I had not gotten. I kind of went to the next Russian guy that I can't pronounce. Saw him a little bit. I kind of overlooked him. He looks. It's the only center that they drafted in this entire draft, so that might have said something.
Yeah, I mean, and they've seemed to have gotten one. They found one or two overagers in each of the last drafts. Kvacha was overage. Werner was overage, as was Mironov. Those guys had all been through the draft once, so they're not dismissing these guys.
Wasn't Shivrev also an overager?
I don't remember. I don't think he was. I think he was. He might have been. I could be wrong. I don't think he was.
I thought he was 19 when the Avs drafted him.
It's possible. You could be right. So, but it is another interesting thing that you look at. There's a lot of teams that they don't bother with those overage guys. Which is, I mean, you could be because you never know what you're going to get. Who's going to be a late bloomer? Who just needed the right situation to thrive in, and suddenly that right situation came. So I don't know. Again, it's another pick that you look at and you go, wow, I like this guy. And since he's overage, if the Avalanche wanted to sign him, they could move him into the AHL next year.
And since they have their own affiliate that they need to stock, they certainly do. Not outside the realm of possibility.
They could also let him go back for one more. I think he can. I think he has one more year of eligibility down in the OHL.
He does.
So he could also play it out there. So that's all going to depend on what the Avalanche want from him, and likely what they see from him in camp. So go ahead.
Yeah, I agree.
So moving on to the second selection of the 5th round, the Avalanche select Danila Zhuravlyov. Zhuravlyov? I don't know. I don't know how to say it. I'm going to go with...
I think you were pretty close there.
I just pronounced literally every letter that is in his name. So,
which is, ironically, every letter in the alphabet.
It seems that, yeah. So, yes, Danila Zhuravlyov out of the Russian juniors. Russian juniors, right? I have to move that page away. Yes, Russian junior. Smaller guy again. He's 6 foot 163.
I don't think he's small. He just needs to fill out his frame.
Average height, small weight for sure. I'll give you that. For sure. I'll give you that. Again, so now we're out into sort of the Avs go back to Russia for this particular one. Hard to find a lot of information on him. So some of the things that I found on as people were mentioning stuff on social media, Andrei Poryadin says, solid and calm defender with smooth skating and quite a lot of untapped offensive potential. He is a nice person too. Strong pickup for the Avalanche. MHH wrote, good speed and acceleration. Uses his skating to lead the breakout and to push the puck up the ice. He also uses it to make up for his lack of size on the defensive end with the puck due to his lack of strength. Because, again, the dude's like 160 when soaking wet. Uses his speed and gap control to effectively shut down defenders. Got a good slap shot. Allowed him to score 9 goals from the blue line this season. Decent late-round pick. This is a guy, again, European players you have the rights to longer than CHL players. So if you're getting in these guys that need projects, that are projects, they need time to work. It's not a bad idea to find a European guy that you like because you've got the ability to hold on to their rights a little bit longer.
And if he can skate, which a lot of the Russian program is focused on skating now, I'm all for it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's the perfect late round throw your hat, try to hit a Hail Mary.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he seems like a guy who's got the ability to skate and can move and be a decent puck distributor. This late in the draft, you kind of hope that you hope that these guys are able to really ever crack an NHL lineup. So that type, it's hard to speak to their potential with never really being able to see a lot of these guys because they play in obscure leagues in Russia. So I don't know. We'll see how he plays up as he continues moving in the system in Russia.
Yeah, anything from round 5, 6, 7, you just have to see what they do. You're getting them basically at the early stages of their development, and you actually get to put a hand into how they develop.
Yep.
And now it's just watching it.
Indeed. So we'll see him probably at prospect camp and development camp and all of those things, and rookie camp and then training camp. At least all you lucky people who still live in Denver will. Moving to the 6th round, do you have anything else to add on Zhuravlev?
No, just that we need to learn how to pronounce his name.
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce Russian names, I figured out.
Danila, marbles in your mouth. Okay. The Avalanche went back to Russia for their 6th round pick and selected Nikolai Kovalenko, who plays in the Russian junior leagues in Yaroslavl.
Mm-hmm. Son of Alexei Kovalenko.
Of Andrei Kovalenko.
Who
was actually a part of the Patrick Waugh trade.
Yep.
So, point per game-ish player in the MHL. So good for him on that. It's like slightly under a point per game, and same for him in the playoffs. When I checked his stats as well, they're all basically at that like 0.97 points per game. So, depending on if you're a glass half full, glass half empty person, you'll either give him credit or shit on him for it, I guess. Good Russian player drafted by the Avalanche. He's not very big, but does a great job near the boards and likes to steal the puck from his opponents. Very competitive forward, great person. Suppose he'll spend the next 3 seasons in the KHL. That's from Anton Vasyatin on social media when I searched Kovalenko's name on Twitter. Apparently his nickname is the Mini Tank.
Uh-huh.
Which I love.
I've heard his motor is always running too.
Yeah, that's good. High engine, real competitive. And you can do that even if you're smaller. If you're competitive and can deal with the physical punishment that comes along with it, then you're going to do just fine.
Right.
But let me pull. I have his numbers up here. In the MHL this past season, he was 31 points in 33 games, 10 goals, 21 assists, and then in the playoffs, he was 12 points in 13 games, 1 goal, 11 assists. And he has 2 games to his credit in the KHL this year, but is +1, and that's all that they say about him. Of course, who knows? We all know. We've learned this past season with Avs prospect Shvirev that sometimes those, just because you have games to your credit doesn't necessarily mean you played at all in those games.
Right.
So that was an interesting thing to learn. So then go ahead.
Yeah, and then they finished up in Russia.
And then they finished up in Russia again. So they go Russia with Shamil Shmakov, who I just sit and imagine
that really just sounds like that someone was trying to figure a name and they would just.
I heard the name and immediately went, I would love for Sean Connery to be the guy announcing his games. So you could have someone say, "Oh, that's a sensational shave by Shamil Shmakov, simply scintillating."
Once again, we play our dangerous game.
Who is another goaltender, and is another huge goaltender.
Mm-hmm.
6'6", 194.
Yep.
So there's a lot. Again, another one that's hard to find a lot of information on. This is what I found when looking at him, looking around on Twitter. Will Scouch tweeted this about him. Said, biggest wild card I saw this year in net was D+1 in Russia, Shamil Shmakov. This is the greatest name ever. 6'6", who played like Tim Thomas. if he can refine his game a bit and stay under a bit more control, he could be one to watch.
I mean, he played 51 games, had a 2.03 goals against average, 6 shutouts, and a 932 save percentage.
Yeah.
That's
half bad. That's
quite the jump from playing 15 games the year before.
Yes, indeed. And, I mean, the unfortunate thing is in the playoffs, he seemed to fall off his edge a little bit there. Maybe that's just, maybe that's just the team that they happened to draw was just that good. And, hard to say, never really being able to watch an MHL game. But his save percentage dropped to under 9 both years, both this season and last season, under 90%. 0.897 this year, 0.896 last year, and his goals against jumps to above 3. So it's, that's.
It seems like he's either hit or miss. He's either on and great or off and terrible.
Yeah, it's a very interesting. An interesting comparison to note here that he plays like Tim Thomas. Now, I'm not assuming that means that he's going to go carry a team to a Stanley Cup. More so, I would just imagine that he plays with sort of a reckless abandon that Tim Thomas was famous for.
Right.
Which, if it works for you, great. Because Tim Thomas was a very interesting goalie that I wouldn't really ever say that he. How would you describe his style other than blah, blah?
A lot of personality on and off the ice.
For sure. So, at the end, the Avalanche end up selecting 2 goalies, 1 center, 1 defenseman, and 4 wingers. They also acquire a goaltender using one of their draft picks that they had via trade. So they come out of the weekend with 3 more goalies. That's
taking a system from barren to super saturated in one short month.
Now, again, the goalies that are drafted are still longer-term projects. You could probably say that Anunin is probably likely seems a bit farther along than most of the other guys. That being said, he's not a guy that I expect to be in North America next year, though I guess who knows. So, again, beyond your NHL goaltending, there's still some holes down there, but they certainly packed a lot more prospects in there, and that cannot be understated.
And we said they needed to focus on it because they just had no one in the pipeline that had any promise to them. Mm-hmm. I feel like you should at least draft a goaltender every year, and about every third year you should take one early, like second or third round early.
Yeah. Just
so you're always keeping that pipeline. That way you can have something like Nashville has. Nashville's always got goaltenders coming out the pipeline.
Yeah. And again, we've said it the last few times. Goaltending is just so hard to predict and really difficult to consistently produce.
And develop. Every goaltender develops differently.
Absolutely. It's just there's some sort of I assume it probably goaltending is one of the lesser known classes offered at Hogwarts because it just seems like there's some sort of wizardry involved with it.
And we also talked about the Avs needing wingers.
Yep.
And they definitely addressed that. But I feel like they at least got 2 wingers with real legitimate NHL prospects.
I agree.
Kott is one I would definitely see breaking in within the next. Something we didn't discuss. Since he is with the Czech Republic, the Avs could sign him and play him in the AHL.
And agreed. And the benefit with that is even though he would be playing in the NHL, his contract would still slide. So they wouldn't be using a year of his contract.
Yeah. So do it kind of the way they did with Mikko Rantanen.
Exactly. That would be, yes. I think that might be a great way for him to go.
And Sampo Ranta, I feel like has legitimate NHL prospects behind him. Those two, I feel like you should expect something to come of it.
Yeah. I certainly like both those picks. Ranta definitely seems to have more work to do on his game, especially outside of the offensive zone. But
he's going to college, though, so he'll work on that, and he'll be in a perfect place to really refine that.
Yeah, I agree. It should work out. That should hopefully work out pretty nicely for him. I'm excited to see that. So, again, we look at this. We have Czech Republic, Finnish League, the USHL/college, national team, U.S. national team /college, OHL, Russian junior. They're going all over the place for these guys, which is excellent.
And I mean, literally one Czech, 2 Finns, one American, 1 Canadian, and 3 Russians. Technically, Kovalenko is listed as an American, but we know he's Russian.
American who is playing in the Russian leagues, yes.
And with a Russian father who, yeah.
Yes.
That quacks like a duck.
Exactly. So it seems, again, on paper, it seems like the Avalanche have done a pretty strong job identifying players that are going to fit into the culture of their system, and that should fill some roles that the system needs to see them do. There's some work obviously to do. Drafting is it's a 2 to 5 year process for a lot of these guys. Rarely ever outside of the top picks do you see a guy jump straight into the NHL. And
right.
It seems like the Avs have there's certainly some guys that are very interesting to be watching. Rance has definitely
won. Enough of an established roster that it would be hard for a player to break into it right now unless his last name is Hughes and his first name is Jack.
Yep.
Just, maybe throwing that one together.
Yeah. I mean, I think the guy for me that's going to be the most interesting to watch is probably going to be Brandon Sagen. I'm really interested to see what happens with him.
See if the Avs saw something that no one else did.
Overage guy. You never know what it's. I mean, who did? Oh God, what's his name? The undrafted free agent the Avs signed started last season. Ty
Smith.
Yeah, I think that guy scored 100 points in the WHL last year.
Ty Smith, Ty Lewis.
He wasn't drafted. He wasn't part of this year's draft.
Mm-hmm.
So
looking it up here because Ty Lewis.
Ty Lewis, right? So I mean, just because you don't go, you're not drafted in a particular year or even in 2 years, because he was passed on in 2 drafts, doesn't mean that there's not something to offer. So I love that the Avalanche are finding guys in a lot of different ways to fill roles in their system. I would love, and I'm very interested to see what ends up going on with Brandon Sagen there. So that is this year's draft. I promised him that we were going to get to his voicemail because we've missed him the last few times. It's Spencer, who has left us all kinds of messages, and usually it's just because we haven't been doing a podcast at the moment that he leaves a message that we've missed some of those with him. But he has what he calls a wild solution to the draft lottery. So we're going to give that a quick play here and see what we got there. Let me make sure it works for one.
Hey, fellas, it's Spencer. Long time no talk. I will have a catch-up voicemail for you guys next time, but this time I was telling Kevin about this idea I had about how to change the draft lottery and how I feel like it can be better. You obviously are familiar with the system we have now. A bunch of draft lottery balls and whatnot, bingo, whatever. They play bingo, they play plink, whatever. They do the lottery balls, they come out in a certain order, and that determines who pays what. My idea is we scrap that. Because right now I feel like the league punishes the last place team more than rewards them. Like, the Avs, they say they had a better chance to pick 4th overall than 1st last year to get Nico over Kale. But, we got Kale because we got 4th because we had a better chance of doing that. So I would just scrap that and say last team every year gets the 1st overall pick. So they're locked in for that. So now you have 15 other teams that didn't make the playoffs So, and you say, okay, so now I'm going to do a single elimination tournament for these teams, and the second to last place team, actually, the second to last team that got eliminated from the playoffs, like the team that was not eliminated most recently, gets to skip the first round. They get a bye. So then you have 14 teams. It's just a single elimination. You go against each other, and so 14 becomes 7, and then that's where you add the second to last team that will be eliminated from the playoffs into that. So you have a bracket of 8, and then 8 becomes 4, 4 becomes 2, and the 2 fight over. It's going to be the second overall pick, and it'll be second and third. Is the first place person wins second overall, the second place wins third, and you're going to do the draft order for the non-playoff teams that way in like 1 to 15, or even 1 to 16 eventually. So that's my idea. Let me know what you think. Have fun. Can't wait to hear this on the pod. Peace.
All right, let me make sure I'm understanding that correctly. What it sounds like is that we want to have, so there's basically going to be a tournament. But first and most importantly, the team that finishes last overall automatically gets that top pick. No matter what, that's who gets it. Then the next worst team gets a bye out of the remaining teams who are then going to have a little tournament. So they get a first-round bye, and then they play until there's only one team left, March Madness style, one game and done, until you have a winner of said tournament. Winner of said tournament gets the second overall pick, and then order of elimination there after second. So those two teams get the second and third, and then order of elimination afterward determines the order of the draft from there, at least for the non-playoff teams. Okay. Does that sound like I'm repeating that right, Aaron?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Interesting. I certainly think it's a lot more compelling than the current form of the draft lottery, where you're now lottoing off the top 3 picks. I agree. I don't like that overall because it punishes the teams that are theoretically most in need of those picks. And the whole concept of your draft is it's supposed to be encouraging the cyclic nature of sports, which is you get bad. You're a bad team, therefore you get the best choice of the best players, so that you can then build to be a better team. And then teams will lose off players and they'll become bad, and then it's just it's the circle of life, so to speak. And
yeah, but there are some teams like the Buffalo Sabres who just waste pick after pick. So.
Right, and I understand that they want to. There has already been talk of limiting the number of top 5 or top overall picks that a team can have if they do it too often. I think the most famous example is that people always bring up is Edmonton, because Edmonton has picked first overall so many times that they don't want to have one team constantly being there, and I get that too. I don't know. What do you think of this play for the draft?
I would like it to be air hockey. Yeah, I'm not even kidding.
Air hockey.
Uh-huh.
That's interesting.
Yep.
Like the GMs play air hockey, or does like the team selects one?
Oh, I like the idea of the GMs. I was thinking the mascots.
See all these guys in suits just going at it. Brendan Shanahan, eventually, who I know isn't the GM, but eventually Brendan Shanahan just like starts beating the crap out of somebody because that's who he is, right?
Mm-hmm.
He takes poor Lou Lamoriello and throws him through the...
Yeah, the draft, the lottery is never perfect, but I feel like it's better the way it is now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've heard the idea of a tournament suggested several times before. And I mean, there's certainly merit to the argument. I don't think it's something that the NHL would ever go for, simply because they don't want to have anything take away from the Stanley Cup playoffs, ever. So there'd obviously be some kind of scheduling issues going along with, especially the first. Well, I mean, all but the last round of the playoffs, because there's hockey every day in those Stanley Cup playoffs, and the league wants the attention there. And I'm not against the idea of having the teams actually play hockey to decide draft order. It's certainly an interesting argument. I don't think it's something that's ever going to happen, mostly because the league does not want to have anything take away from those playoffs.
And do the players really want to play another game just so they could get a different draft pick?
Yeah, that's certainly issues that you'd have to bring up.
You would have a heck of a time trying to convince the Players Association to go for that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, it's an interesting idea. It's an interesting idea, and it's something that there's far too many things that the league would have to solve, that they'd have to get the players on board for, that just don't make it particularly realistic. It would be like I said, I'm not against the idea of players having a say in it. More hockey is always good for me, if you're asking me. But I'm totally with you on that. I don't think that there's a way that the league can really work that out.
There's just no way they would go for it. Just keep it the way it is.
Indeed. Right on. Well, that is the podcast for you right there, unless we got anything else to add.
Nope. Free agency starts in about a week, so keep your eyes on Twitters, track out, because you're going to start seeing which players teams are meeting with. And John Tavares has already said he's going to take a meeting with 5 other teams. And
let me tell you, man, is the NHL Network working on convincing everybody that San Jose is going to be in on this.
San Jose is going to be in
on
that.
I'm sure they're going to take a meeting, but I don't see how they make that work. They do not have room to do that.
Well, they just made the trade with Ottawa to make it work.
They still have to re-sign Hurdle. They still have to re-sign Tierney. Right now, at this point, they still only have those guys are going to get raises. They're only going to end up with like $8 million, $7 million left in their cap space.
If they want to make it work, and I feel like they will, they'll make it work.
Then they're going to set themselves up for. They're not going to. They might add him, but they're not going to give themselves any actual tools to do it, because they're going to have to move quality players with big contracts that are going to take away. I don't see it working. It does not make any sense to me.
I don't know. My money is currently on him going back to the Islanders.
Same.
I feel like it's going to be like Stamkos. He's going to take some meetings and figure out he likes it better at Long Island. And they've done a really good job of putting talent all around him now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the Islanders had one of my favorite drafts of any team.
They certainly made it a lot easier for Tavares to look at it and go, okay, maybe there is something I can work on here. I'm kind of with you. Lamoriello was a good addition, and they went and hired Barry Trotz. I mean, that's going to be a huge up for him and get the coach who just won the Stanley Cup. I mean,
yep.
That's certainly going to give him plenty of incentive.
And I'm okay with that. Keep him out east.
Yes, please. Do not go to St. Louis, John Tavares.
I have this idea that that Paul Stastny is going to be coming back to Colorado.
I hope it's on a reasonable contract, because he just had the type of playoffs that's going to make someone want to pay him stupid money.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be the choice between getting stupid money from Montreal or going back to Colorado and for less money for probably for playoff runs.
Yeah, I guess we'll see what you decide.
I feel like Stastny's one of those guys. He goes where he's comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
He's not exactly. He's just coming off a $7 million payday. So I don't know that he's going to be chasing a huge paycheck. I think he'll take a 3-4 years, $5.5 million, maybe.
Yeah.
Which isn't that bad.
Not terrible. I mean, even that's a little more than I'd really want to, just because he's going to be,
You're going to have to move with the market just a little bit to make it work.
Yeah.
But $5.5 million isn't going to strap you for cash, especially on a 3-year contract. So, all that together, I just think Stastny, I get this feeling that Stastny's going to come back. And they're currently sitting with $21 million in cap space, and they're probably going to use most of that, I would guess, on, and it's not even going to take effect this year, on extensions for Rantanen and Zadorov.
Yeah.
Grubauer, with him signed, that's actually probably closer to $18 million. But
yeah, does Cap Friendly have the bump up in the salary cap yet? I don't know.
Currently, upper limit 79.5. Yep, it has the upper limit.
Oh, really? It only went to 79.5?
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was going to go up like to 82.
Yeah, that's what they were expecting, and it went lower.
Huh.
But that's about what you'll be expecting. Maybe the Avs get a winger if they want to get like a bigger guy like Patrick Maroon. But
yeah, there's certainly been some. That's still where the Avs are probably going to want to fill out most of their stuff, is on the secondary scoring route.
Winger, James Van Riemsdyk.
Oh, he's going to get a ridiculous amount of money too, though.
Oh yeah, he is going to. That's about the only name that I can see them going after.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of your free agency primer. We'll probably do another podcast once we know.
Absolutely. I mean, as much as we would love John Tavares, and believe me, it's still my dream that John Tavares comes out to Colorado, I just don't see it happening, unfortunately. Sad. I mean, I'm not against the idea of Paul Stastny. I mean, he's never been the fastest player, but the thing he is he's just absurdly smart. He is such a smart player. Smart player, great at face-offs.
Killing, their leadership. He offers a lot of he offers a lot of intangibles that really what the Avs need.
He'll just go and do what he is asked to do, and that's really that's a great thing, especially the guy coming in at what his age is now. You're not going to you expect him to come in and be like, you're still very much, you're not. It's not that whole thing that Patrick Waugh loved to do, to bring in the Jerome McGinley's and all those veteran guys and be like, now these big guys have to be the lead. No, the leadership is still very clearly the leadership in this room.
He's there to be a mentor to guys like Tyson Jost,
right.
Maybe help Nathan McKinnon win some faceoffs,
Seriously,
that kind of thing.
Help some guys learn how to win a faceoff. So,
yep.
Right on. So we'll talk with you guys probably in, maybe about another week here as we get closer and closer to Canada Day, which is also Free Agent Day. And yeah, we'll see what things are looking like for the Avalanche a little bit more. All in all, I think again we've got a very interesting draft class to look at. With, if nothing else, we have a lot of guys to keep our eyes on. So
right, keep it real and have a good day.
Right on. Can't say it any better than that. So thanks for sticking around with another episode of the Burgundy Brigade podcast. We will talk to you guys soon. Give us a follow. I am at BRG Brigade Kevin. He is at Avalangelist. You can find the podcast at Podbean. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes. And yeah, so enjoy the rest of your day or evening or whenever you happen to be listening to this. And we will talk to you guys later.